Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and tuning in with us this afternoon. Folks, we got a power-packed show for you. We got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about what happened at yesterday's primary elections in Alaska and Wyoming. Liz Cheney has been voted out. We'll talk about what her next steps may be and the impact that it has on the GOP and the rest of the country. Also, can we talk about what is going on with the political and belief polarization in this country? I'm asking the question, where should Black America stand as we see this breakdown of democracy? Should we defend it or should we add to it, considering the very, very horrific history of rights and so many other issues that we have yet to fully see? So we'll have that conversation with Dr. Omekongo Dibinga to give us some insight about what's next in that space. Later on, can we talk about how climate change has affected and has excelled infectious diseases? We'll check in with Malaria No More to discuss the issue of malaria across the country and around the world, and why we may need to fight harder for climate change to slow down the rate of infectious diseases. And then later, I check in with the founding dean of Morgan State University's New School of Medicine, Dr. John Seeley, to get his insight about HBCUs, and the future of medicine for the next generation. So all of that on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Make sure you join us in the conversation on YouTube, Facebook, and other streaming platforms. And let's get ready to go. Folks, welcome to The Culture. Welcome, and happy Wednesday, folks. First and foremost, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to The Culture for this interactive, engaging set of conversations we got planned for you. First and foremost, before we get the discussion started, make sure that you just head right over there to blackstarnetwork.com. We want to make sure that you understand how serious of your support really is, because we need your support every step of the way. We are working to become a 24-hour streaming service and platform, news and information platform. We're adding new shows every quarter, and so we need your support. So check us out, blackstarnetwork.com, download the app, and most importantly, give what you can give and share all the information and the content, as we're streaming a lot of great information from some of our shows to special events and special conversations that Brother Roland and others are having. So you can find that all at blackstarnetwork.com. All right, folks, let's first talk about what happened yesterday with the big election primaries that came out of Alaska and Wyoming. The big news that came out of yesterday's conversation about politics: Liz Cheney has officially been voted out. She has decided to, she has already conceded to her Trump-backed opponent. Yesterday, she made the announcement that, even though that she has been voted out, the work will never stop. And I want to we're going to be checking in with our brother, Dr. Gerald Horne, who serves as the Morris Professor of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston, to break it down for us, to give us some insight about what does this mean for the GOP, what does this mean for the rest of the country, and possibly the impact that it will have on democracy, as Liz Cheney has been leading the charge of trying to get the GOP back into a much more traditional space. So we welcome to the airwaves of The Culture once again, our analyst and expert, Dr. Gerald Horne. Dr. Horne, thank you so much, brother, for joining us once again today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Dr. Horne, Liz Cheney, very, very interesting person, to say the least, right? Very interesting political figure. We have been seeing a redefinition of who she is, a rebranding, quote unquote, of where she stands. We know that she does not like President Trump. Yesterday, it was a Trump test, some people have called it, because they would say, oh, if she is able to survive this primary, then it shows that the GOP may be going into a new direction outside of the influence of President Trump. However, that didn't happen, Doc. She lost the primary. She already conceded. So now people are asking what's next. What do you foresee as being the next step that she's going to take and the impact it's going to have on the GOP?
Well, the news reports tell us that she's considering a race for the presidency. I assume her attempted run would be to sabotage Mr. Trump because he's the odds-on favorite to be the Republican nominee for president in 2024. And I guess Liz Cheney feels that she can drain votes away from him. I'm not so sure about that. I'm also not so sure about how much money she can raise. She only has about $14 million in the till, perhaps even less than that. And that's hardly enough to run for the US presidency, competing in television markets as large as New York, Los Angeles, and Denver, for example. However, her loss is a very troubling and disturbing sign. She is derided in her home state of Wyoming. She's called a rhino, Republican in name only. Towards the end of this primary season, she was afraid to visit Wyoming because of security reasons. Because as you know, in Wyoming, as in many other states, there are proliferation of weapons. And she felt that going home might lead to her being killed. So this is a very serious matter. And obviously it has everything to do with her serving along with Congressman Benny Thompson of the Congressional Black Caucus as chairperson of the investigating committee in the House investigating the insurrection of January 6th. So we have reached a real fork in the road in this country. And I think that your audience in particular should be aware of what the buzz is in Washington, which is that what has led to this state of affairs, where Mr. Trump is really not necessarily a cause, but a symptom, happens to be, believe it or not, the election of Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. Now, it's not as if he ruled as a radical. His policies were, generally speaking, well within the mainstream, but it triggered something deep and profound within the Trump base. Mr. Trump plays on that fear and anxiety like a jazz man plays a bass fiddle. He portrays himself as being aggrieved and victimized. For example, the raid on Mar-a-Lago just a few days ago. And his base, believe it or not, they feel that they are aggrieved and victimized. And so they are in sync. And I'm not sure where this leaves the Black community.
That is going to be the bigger question that we have to certainly look at, Dr. Horn. Getting back to that point that you made about, this being a disturbing sign, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because I saw this loss. I mean, people have been forecasting that this was going to happen, but now, and I read a piece, and I think it was either CNN or the New York Times, and they called her that she was the last one of the Big Ten Republicans that stood against President Trump to stay in office. You had others who decided to not run for election and other things. So that voice is going to be gone. So with that, does this mean that what's going to happen next? And I mean politically for the GOP. Do the GOP continue to go down this crazy Trump-filled destructive path that we're seeing them go down without any brakes on that train, or are they is this going to be a sign for them to say, wait a minute, hold up, she's one of the ones that she has always been there. Like, what do you think the people at the top of the party, I'm not necessarily thinking about Mitch McConnell and those guys, but I'm thinking about the RNC. What do you think they're going to say, or what do you think they're thinking at this point as they see the influence of Trump really taking over the traditional GOP party's principles and ideas?
I think we'll get a definitive answer in about 90 days with these midterm elections. Now, what's striking is that the Democrats thus far have made something of a comeback. A few months ago, many pundits thought that this would be a blowout, that it was obvious, they said, that the Republicans would reclaim the Senate, reclaim the House. Now they're not so sure. I think part of it has to do with some of the legislative victories in Congress by the Democrats, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which is basically a health and climate change bill. The bill that gave many corporations funding to produce these computer chips, which, as you know, are made disproportionately in South Korea and Taiwan, now under threat by the People's Republic of China. The rather mild gun control legislation, the pandemic relief that Mr. Biden was able to negotiate and engineer last year. And so there is a distinct possibility that the Democrats will keep control of the Senate and perhaps even keep control of the House. Now, if that happens, the big cats, the fat cats in the Republican Party are going to have to rethink. However, I'm not sure if the base of the Republican Party is going to desert their man, Mr. Trump. And so what that portends is a real rupture, a real fissure in the Republican Party. And I think that that's all to the good as far as the Black community is concerned, because if those two wings of the Republican Party, the fat cats and the Trump base, are squabbling and quarreling with each other, that means they have less opportunity and time to come after us.
That's an interesting strategy there, Doc. I wasn't thinking like I wasn't thinking that at all, brother. That's an interesting strategy. That is an interesting strategy. All right, look, let's do this. I want to get some thoughts from our watchers around this. And then the other part of this conversation is we got to talk about what the vice president said as he's looking he made a big announcement earlier. So let's just get some thoughts from our watchers. Folks, to my online culture crew, you know how we do. Make sure y'all post y'all comments to our YouTube and Facebook pages right now and share your thoughts on this. What's next? What do you think should be the next step for Liz Cheney? How do you feel about the fact that she lost? Like I said, people have been forecasting that she's going to lose anyway. But now what's next? How do you feel about the fact that the GOP may be losing its traditional voice and going into now embracing a more extreme voice of their ideology? All right, Jawan, always good to hear from you, sis. You checked in and you said, look, I disagree with Liz Cheney at least 99% politically, but I respect that she stands up to Donald J. Trump and his lies, even though it would cost her seat. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. So I guess that's the 1% agreement that you have with her, Jawad, that might be the case. All right, I appreciate you, sis. Karina, good to hear from you, sis. Good afternoon. Look, you said this, Karina, on Liz Cheney, good. CNN was reporting she is now thinking about running for POTUS, President of the United States. She has been considering that for a while now, and that's not new at all. Yep, that's not new at all. Karina, thank you so much. Janelle, you checked in. Good to hear from you too, sis. You say Dr. Horn is right. Let them fight amongst themselves and we can be about our business. Yeah, if we have a strategy. If we have a strategy. I mean, and to Janelle's point, I agree. And Doc, the thing is, we have these like openings, we have these opportunities where we can start to organize and mobilize and get our people. But something is telling me, and I could be completely wrong in my analysis and assessment of this, but I just feel like we're just kind of sitting there watching what happened versus being proactive and saying, okay, this party is under siege. The Democrats are trying to play the high road and getting their ass kicked in the process. We need to figure something else out. And we're not doing it. I'm not hearing where there is an urgency from either Black organizations, Black leadership, Black political leadership, and say, okay, guys, we got to get some things done. I'm not hearing that. And I've tried to keep my ears open to everything that's happening from Washington to California. But do you feel that there's this urgency of right now, where we're organizing and strategizing in the midst of all of this chaos?
I'm afraid that you happen to be correct. What I mean by that is that historically, if you look historically in our torturous journey from slavery through Jim Crow to what we have today, our leaders and our organizations were able to pull us along by internationalizing our struggle. That helps to explain the success and the triumph of the late, great Paul Robeson, that helps to explain the success and the triumph of the 19th century anti-slavery leader Frederick Douglass at a time when Washington and London were oftentimes at dagger's point. Frederick Douglass was to be found in London, helping to mobilize an anti-slavery coalition. Our leaders and organizations today are not globally minded. You had the NAACP meeting just a few weeks ago in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and you have all sorts of diplomatic missions and foreign embassies right down the road in Washington, D.C., not far distant from the NAACP headquarters, but they did not think to invite these diplomats to their annual convention. Likewise, you have members of the Congressional Black Caucus who are seeking to penalize African nations who do not go along with the U.S. policy on the Ukraine. You have many people in your audience who do not go along with the U.S. policy on Ukraine. So obviously, these African nations are reluctant and loath to come to our defense when you have members of the Congressional Black Caucus coming after them with legislative penalties. We need a total rethink of our position in North America and a total rethink of our strategy to dig ourselves out of this hole in which we find ourselves.
I would agree. And I would agree. What's the fire? Doc, you're a man that studies history. You have written books about pivotal moments in not just Black history, but American history. When you're talking about creating a revolutionary change, is there a common thread that you have found in each moment of our history to light that fire, to get people to a place where they are becoming activated and involved and engaged, besides being passive? And I know that some folks are saying, well, we need to just stay out the way, but I feel like that's not the best strategy at this point. What has history shown us to be that fire?
Well, I think one lesson clearly from the history of Black people in North America is that we cannot be afraid to alienate the powers that be. Now, that may sound simple, but I'm afraid to say that many of our leaders are afraid of alienating the powers that be. I made reference to Paul Robeson. He was not afraid to swim against the tide when he said that there should be positive relations with African liberation movements, positive relations with socialist countries, etc. Our leaders and our organizations today, they do not think along that line. And the common thread with regard to anti-slavery and anti-Jim Crow, once again, to reiterate, has been A, the ability to forge global and international coalitions, and B, being willing to thumb your nose at the folks who rule this country, many of whom don't have our best interests at heart in the first instance.
Wow. So here's what I'm thinking, and I strive to be a systems thinker here, Doc. Given the fact of where Africa stands with the whole Ukraine-Russia situation and how they need international support, given the fact of where we are in this country and how we're looking to internationalize our struggle, sounds like the perfect opportunity for us to get the conversation started to bridge the gap. It sounds like it's the perfect chance for us to say, you know what? Y'all need some stuff. We need some stuff. You need us. We need you. Let's come together and figure things out. And I'm putting this on the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm putting it on organizations that do international work or have some international outreach, that we need to bring that here. We need to bring that here. We need to create a pipeline for that. And then also, I think, Doc, to implement, start to integrate some of those ideas into a larger strategy, whether it's a strategy for this year, next 6 months, or whether it's a strategy for the, leading up to the next presidential election. I don't know. But there has to be something there. There has to be something where people can truly understand that these things have to happen very, very quickly. Let's go to Karen. Karen, you checked in. Karen Connor, you said, look, while I commend Liz Cheney for her work on the January 6th committee, she for Trump and is not for matters important to the Black community. Absolutely. Absolutely, Karen. Thank you so much for checking in. Good to hear from you. Another new voice that's checking in. Belinda, you said, how does the loss for Liz compare to the winning of Trump's pick? Which strategy does renaming her new party mean for the GOP? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what their strategy is, but the fact that remains, Belinda, and I think you and I, we know this, Dr. Horner certainly can tell us more, but their strategy is we're going to do what we want to do. That's the strategy. The strategy is we are trying to get power by any means necessary. And if we stop looking through the rose-colored lens of trying to be documented, and you tell me very quickly, sir, what's your thoughts on this? I think we're looking at the Republican Party through the wrong lens. I think we're looking at them through the lens of what they should be standing for versus what they actually are standing for. And that's a problem.
That is a major problem. In fact, Farajii, you're in Los Angeles, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
So Karen Bass, who's now a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, as you know, she's running for mayor of Los Angeles, expected to win in a few months. I'd like to see Farajii Muhammad run for her open seat in Los Angeles for that congressional district and put forward some of these brilliant ideas that you're giving to the audience of the culture. Because certainly we need new leadership. We need youthful leadership. We need brash leadership. We need intelligent leadership. And I think that you've displayed on the culture for oh so many months the kind of leadership that our community so desperately craves and so desperately needs.
I appreciate the vote of confidence. I appreciate that, Doc. I really do. Thank you. Thank you. Doc, we got a couple of moments left. I want to get your take on what Vice President Cheney said in a recent interview where he had mentioned that he would consider testifying for the January 6th committee. Keenan, let's put that quote on the screen of exactly what the former vice president, this is former vice president, not the vice president, folks, not Kamala Harris. This is Mike Pence. He said, if there was an invitation to participate, I would consider it. He said this after calling January 6th a tragic day for all Americans. But you heard me mention the Constitution a few times this morning. Under the Constitution, we have 3 co-equal branches of government, and any invitation to be directed to me, I would have to reflect on the unique role I was serving in as vice president. It would be unprecedented in history for a vice president to be summoned to testify on Capitol Hill. But as I said, I don't want to prejudge. So if there's ever any formal invitation rendered to us, we would give it due consideration. Wow. What does that say to you, Doc?
It says to me that Mike Pence better watch his back. I've already made reference to the fact that Liz Cheney, towards the end of this primary season, was apprehensive about visiting her home state because she felt that she might get a bullet in the back. We know that Mr. Trump operates like a mob boss. That's one of the reasons he wants this affidavit released from the raid on Mar-a-Lago, because it might release the information that there is an informant in his camp. And if there is an informant in his camp, that particular person probably would not be able to purchase a life insurance policy because their presence on planet Earth would be quite limited as a result of the release of this affidavit. We know that on January 6th, that there were these chants and shouts for hang Mike Pence, that his Secret Service detail was fearful that not only was he about to be lynched, there was a gallows erected on Capitol Hill for that purpose, but also the Secret Service agents felt that they might be lynched too. And of course, reference here the fact that magically all of their texts have somehow disappeared from January 5th, 6th, and 7th. We know that Mr. Trump, during the time that there was this chant of hang Mike Pence, did not lift a finger to rescue his vice president. We know that they've had a falling out. So I'm happy to see that Mr. Pence has made this baby step with regard to transparency. But at the same time, if I were a member of his inner circle or his family, I would request him to beef up his security.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Dr. Horn. I was like, he is playing with some fire. He's really playing with some fire. From the Constitution, I mean, the other part about you, the great work that you do, you actually have studied law, you're an attorney. What about the legal precedents of that he spoke to about it being by a vice president being summoned? Do you think that the January 6th committee would take that bold step to bring the vice president to summit of the former vice president to summit to be to stand before Congress and the American people to testify on such a thing?
Well, I'm glad you said former vice president. He's an ordinary citizen like yourself or myself.
Right.
He can be subpoenaed to come before the committee. Now, he could bring his counsel and refuse to answer certain questions. But certainly, I think it would be worthwhile to get direct testimony. It would make for great television, if nothing else. But speaking of the Constitution, your audience should be aware of the fact that there is a growing movement amongst the Republicans, enunciated most recently by former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum, to draw up a new Constitution. Now, if you think that the old Constitution from the 18th century has weaknesses, which it certainly does, you can only imagine what a new Constitution in the 21st century would look like. This is the latest demand from the lunatic wing of the Republican Party, and we should not rule out the possibility that they will accomplish their goals.
We can't rule that out at all. Dr. Gerald Horne, I always appreciate you for coming on to the show. Folks, I got a big announcement about Dr. Horne. He's such a humble man. He's been doing some fantastic work, and he gives us nothing but top-notch expert analysis each week here on the show. Well, we have decided to bring Dr. Horne as a permanent, regular voice here on The Culture. Next week, we're going to be introducing the Horne Report here on The Culture, where we'll have Dr. Gerald Horne to talk about a lot of different, just an array of topics and issues that are pertinent for us to hear. So we are very, very excited to bring his expertise to the table. So Dr. Gerald Horne, we would like to formally thank you and welcome you to The Culture. And, we look forward to getting all of your insight, brother. I'm just feeding. I'm just learning, and I'm just taking and drinking from and tapping your brain. So, we thank you so much, but welcome to the team, and God willing, we look forward to chatting with you again on the Horne Report next Wednesday.
Right on. I'll see you then.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Doc. Dr. Gerald Horne checking in, Moore's Professorship of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk a little bit more about where should Black folks stand as we're seeing this breakdown, this redefinition of what democracy is. I want to have a conversation about this issue. And let's talk about the fact that there is what they call a belief polarization in this country right now. Where do we fit into this? As the country is being laid out, not just from rich and poor, but you got red states and blue states. Belief polarization. I'm going to share with you what that means. And we're going to be checking in with Dr. Omekongo Dibenya, a voice that you hear on Roland Martin Unfiltered all weekly. We're going to talk to him, Dr. Dibenya, about, where we should go psychologically, emotionally, because this breakdown of democracy, it is weighing on a lot of people. So let's have that conversation. So that discussion is up next and so much more. So stay with us. We got a lot to get to as we move forward here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. It's a angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I wanted to have another conversation. Now, this is just a continuation of discussions that we've been having, not just only with Dr. Horn just a few moments ago, but this has been a part of a number of discussions that I've been having with people on air and off air about where we stand in this country. Where should Black America stand as we're seeing this breakdown of democracy? Where should Black America stand as we see the GOP and the Democratic Party going in on themselves, right? As we see all of these things happening, there is a psychological and an emotional toll that's being placed on each one of us at this day and time. And we have to be very intentional about how we're going to get some sense of clarity, intentional about how we're going to move forward as individuals, and then as certainly as a community and as a people in this country. So I wanted to have this conversation with a brother who has been doing work in space in the area of diversity and inclusion, equity. He's also a lecturer. He's also a motivational speaker. He does music, but you see him and you hear his voice on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we are so happy that he's able to join us today, Dr. Omekongo Dibinga, to join us for this part of the discussion. Doc, good morning, good afternoon. How are you, dear brother?
I'm good, bro. How are you? I love your show.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Doc, I wanted to have a conversation about values. I wanted to have a conversation about psychology, because, you know, in my discussions with voices, with my culture crew, and with some of the experts that we have coming on, I'm always thinking about, okay, this puts us in a crazy space. It really spoke up for me when I was talking to Dr. Tyrone Powers, a former FBI agent that we had on the show Monday. And and during that conversation, when we're talking about just the simple fact of the FBI, and now you got Black folks, Black leaders, Black political leaders who are defending an institution,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
That has historically and presently have not been in our interest as a community, and how we're placed in this space, right?
Yep.
How we are in a situation where we're seeing Liz Cheney. We defend, some people are saying, oh, I like Liz Cheney, but she hasn't liked us. We're seeing democracy, a form of government, Doc, that we are fighting each and every day to include us, falling apart, and then we're trying to figure out, what do I hold it up?
Yeah.
Or I let it fall?
Yeah.
Talk to, I mean, are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing? And if so, what is going on the inside for us as we have these discussions and have to operate in a space of two-ness being in America?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, and it's a great conversation you've been having, but I mean, you have the great conversations every day. So
I appreciate that, bro.
It's expected. But, you know, really at the end of the day, when I look at what's happening with us in our community and this country, obviously I get concerned, I get nervous, but the principle that I always come back to is that as a people, we have been through worse. And that's my default as it relates to how we're going to fight in this country. And since we've been through worse, I feel like we owe it to our ancestors and those who are our elders who are still here, who have seen worse, to continue to fight. Because really, at the end of the day, we got to think about it. If we leave, go to where? Like Congo, South Africa, Colombia, Brazil, wherever, there's no place on this country where they won't come for us, where they won't try to come and recolonize us, work to destroy us, re-enslave us. I mean, in the last segment you had, Dr. Horn was talking about the people talking about writing a new constitution. You got to understand, we're only a few Republican governors away from this country being able to have an actual constitutional convention where everything's going to be on the table again. So we either fight here, you know what I'm saying? So we like fight here in the greatest nation that's, or in terms of power, we fight it here, or we're going to run somewhere else and they're going to come for us in the area where we're already weakened. You know, we go to a place like Liberia, Sierra Leone, we got to deal with our own divisions, African versus African-American versus all of that, and try to work to come together. No, we fight here. Black people in this country have always served as America's conscience. We have fought in every war. We have always been dedicated and committed to this country. This country, up until Roe v. Wade got taken back, we've only enjoyed full democratic rights in this country in terms of citizens for less than 70 years. So this American thing, it's an experiment still. And we have to continue to fight for it, because it's like when James Baldwin left and he saw what Malcolm X and other people were going through in terms of activists, like, I got to come back. I got to, continue to fight. That's where I see where we are. But in the meantime, we got to continue to do work like this, building up Black Star Network, building up our own businesses, building up our own banks, working to defend ourselves for when people do try to come for us in that physical space, so that we can create our own community for survival within this country as we continue to work to strive.
Yeah, and Doc, that's a lot on us. I mean, you have written books about, making sure that your energy and your space is clear, that you have written books about, how to help people to have a vision for themselves and for their life, and how they can be better people and better citizens. You study this stuff, you see this stuff, but this psychologically is putting us in a very, very unique space. For example, and I see Jawan Yvette, you said it. And no, sis, you ain't going crazy. She said that she thought she was going crazy when she was defending the FBI. I had to ask myself, damn, man, am I defending the FBI? Right, but to your point, when we see all of these things happening, and I'm really concerned, Doc, I'm really concerned that we have a very small window of opportunity for us to do something very radical. And I'm not just talking about just for us presently. I'm talking about for those coming behind us, future.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? We have a very small window, and it's like God is saying, look, hey, you got this small window. I'm telling you, you got to take, and you better take this chance. And I'm a little concerned that we're not seeing the fact that, you know what? If we don't take this chance, if we don't think of something very radical, that we're going to fall and be a part of the breakdown of this system.
Yo, the fact of the matter is, as Malcolm Nance talks about, and many others in their work, I mean, we are 3 months away, or less than 3 months away, of this November election from the beginning of the collapse of this democracy, quote unquote democracy. Dang. Period. Bottom line. They already started putting the acts in place to be able to control the elections between the different states electors and the different attorneys and all of the systems that they're setting up. Yeah, people praise Liz Cheney for what she's doing up with Donald Trump, but yeah, she voted against the Voting Rights Act. So, most definitely we understand that there's a contradiction as it relates to that. But the most radical thing that we can do right now is mobilize to vote in November of this year. There are many other radical things that we can be engaged in. We can talk about boycotts or boycotts and making sure we're putting our money where it's supposed to be, challenging people who are sponsoring these people who are ignorant and racist and so on and so forth. But the most important thing we have right now is this election coming up. When I see too many people talk, I'm still seeing people in our community saying things like Republicans and Democrats are the same. Seriously? I mean, come on. I call out the Biden administration on a regular, called out the Obama administration, but I can clearly see the differences. And to be quite honest, we let our own community down in 2016 when we were so caught up in our feelings against Hillary Clinton. Oh, I don't like how she did Obama, even though Obama forgave her, right? That we let Trump get in there, and we gave him Supreme Court. So when you talk about the future generations and you talk about the culture, I got my 3 kids, you know, who are going to have to deal with his justices for the next minimum 50 years or 40 years. And so we, you know what I'm saying? And so, and that might be longer than many of us who might be here or not. And so, but we did that. If these guys win, these racists, these Proud Boys, these whoever, and Trump comes, it's because we let them, because we got too comfortable. You know, Dr. Cornel West talked about one of the problems with Black people on some level is that we stopped focusing on trying to be great and just focus on trying to be successful. You know, just getting the money, the accolades. I got this position, that position. But a great people works every single day to uplift their people. Native American communities, they talk about working for 7, 8, 9 generations down the line. And we got to get to that. You know what I mean, bro? And it starts bro. Now, less than 3 months.
Absolutely, brother. That's where I'm at. I'm like, man, I'm not thinking. I know how November might show up. You know what I mean? I definitely encourage people to vote, but I just see like there's something big on the horizon, Doc. And you know, I've talked to my producer Joel about this. You know, this thing is coming so fast, right? And I think that we have gotten so conditioned to believe that we're being a part of this American democratic system, that you know, with the speed of government, that things are going to come slow. But if you look at folks, if y'all take a look over the past 4 years, 5 years, how things have just descended so fast.
Yep.
Rights being trampled, you know, things that have been in place for years, literally 50 years. We saw that with the Roe v. Wade. We see that with the voting rights bill. We can't even get through. I mean, we had 2020. We had all of this conversation about police reform. We can't get a bill there. I mean, we just finally, they got the big bill with the Inflation Reduction Act, but these things are happening like really, really fast.
That's right.
And it's like, it's happening so fast, Doc, that I think a lot of people are either missing it when it's not paying attention, or we have this hope. And I think this is the biggest challenge for Black America right now. We still hope and believe in the system, right?
Yeah.
That even though a lot of my watchers, they be like, no, man, we need to change. We need to do something radical. We need to do, and I hear them, but I know, and outside of my watchers, maybe a few people watching Brother Roland and this network, there's a huge majority of people that, and I'm saying Black people, that believe in the system. We hope each and every year that the system is going to do right by us. Yeah. So we got this very, very like minority of people that are saying, all right, let's change it. Let's do something different. But there's a huge majority, I think, of people say, wait a minute, hold on, y'all. Let's just see how things play out. And I'm not too sure about that group.
No, I feel you. And we don't have time to sit and wait and play out. We got to get in the game and take action. Many of us are going to work from within the system. Many of us are going to work from outside the system. But really, at the end of the day, we have to continue to do the work. When you talk about things happening so fast, you know, the Washington Post, you know, their famous motto is, you know, democracy dies in darkness. That's a lie. Democracy dies in the brightest of day, right in front of you, day by day, hour by hour, second by second, minute by minute. And that's what we're seeing right now. Every single day, we lose more of a piece of it. As for those of us, when we look at, you know, we didn't get the George Floyd police reform bill. We didn't get the voting rights, right? But if we get 3 or 4 more senators, make Manchin and Sinema irrelevant, we can start to do those things while we have the opportunity to do so. But so many of us are, and look, even with that, we see that despite all of the promises, the Democrats, you know, will come short on some things. But just because we don't get everything we want in one session, we keep fighting. Again, we came from a people who endured hundreds of years of enslavement. You know what I'm saying? If they can deal with that and fight for the change that we got, we can do this. We built this country. This country owes us. And if we just let ourselves watch everything happen, it's not going to be long before they trying to put us in chains again, or we finding ourselves having to bounce this country. Yeah. And like I said, wherever you go, they will find you. That's how white supremacy and nationalism works.
Yeah, can't get rid of it. All right, let's go to some of the comments, folks. Y'all checked in. So many people have y'all have so much to say around this issue. As we talk to Dr. Debenya, who is a lecturer professor, he is an analyst and a speaker but he is looking at everything from politics to diversity and equity in so many different spaces. We're so happy to have our brother join us. Mike V, you checked in. You say, look, if you don't hold it up, then what do you have left? If January 6th was a success, then what is the Black response? We have not created a plan B for the ambiguity that we trap ourselves in. Oh, damn, Professor. Damn, Doc. God. I think, we ain't got no plan B, Doc.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think that we have a lot of strong plans, but they're not being fully supported. Like, for example, Black Start Network is part of the plan for us to control the information that gets out into our community, right? There are other organizations out there that are fighting as it relates to voting rights. There are organizations run by Black folks that know the companies that we need to sponsor, the media companies that we need to hit, the potential boycotts and boycotts we need to support, but we don't support them. So I think that we put ourselves in a bad situation by saying we don't have a plan B. There have been a lot of people out there in our community who've been working on the plan, the Roland Martin, the Karen Hunters, the Joe Madisons of the world, who have been doing this work on a daily basis. They need more of our support. They need more of our physical dollars. We can't just throw out this hope. If things were hopeless, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because they're not gonna.
That's right. You're right. You're right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, those are the types of things we have to see as progress every single day. And it has to be daily. We can't just wake up and think one day we're going to arrive and Plan B is going to be implemented. They got, Trump and all of these guys got to this space by doing the daily work. I mean, Trump was calling AM radio stations on the daily to talk to anybody who would listen. You know what I'm saying? It was like the biggest free advertisement campaign ever. And rather than this guy possibly going to prison, people are talking about bringing him back as president. They have a plan. Look, I'll give you this one other example. Roe v. Wade. People had movements and rallies every single year once Roe v. Wade got implemented. Every year they were down on the Capitol marching, even if it was 2 people, 20 people, 30 people. And they never gave up until they got to this moment today. We need that type of dedication. And many of us just don't have that type of energy.
Yeah, I agree. Hotep Pan-Africa, we must see, you said we must see financial backing by our wealthiest as every other white group has done. Yeah, we do need to see that. We need to see that. You know how we need to see that very quickly? We need to put some fire under the wealthy, the black intelligentsia, the Black wealthy class. Dejima, Boutique, you said Black political class and Black managerial class are very much aligned with the system until they lose. Yeah. Until you know what? Because Doc, you know it and I know it. When Black folks start losing out, when the middle class, and if you don't believe that there's a war on the middle class just in general in this country, then I'm so sorry. I can't help you. But there is a war on the middle class in this country. There is a huge war. The disparity between the haves and the have-nots is growing wider and wider each day. I'm in LA, y'all. You know the disparity is crazy out here.
Yes.
It's real. It's very real. And it reminds me of the time of what they call in history the Gilded Age. You know what I mean? Where, that was New York City was the center of the Gilded Age. It's Los Angeles that's the center of the Gilded Age. So now it's the disparity is real. And so, Dejima, I appreciate you for saying that. Tiz, you say, look, what we need to do is stop talking about it and be strong about it. Weak people talk about injustice. Strong people fight injustice for their people. Well, I push back on that a little bit, Tiz. I think that strong people we have to, and Doc, you tell me on this because you study this and you do this. We have to, for those of us who are blessed to have the platform and the consciousness, we have to first tell people or help them to shape their context about what they're seeing.
Oh, most definitely.
Because so many times we might believe that this is okay. I've literally have heard Black folks say, hey, you know what? I mean, the hood is always going to be the hood. The ghetto is always going to be ghetto. Like, we have taken it to be our lot in life. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to do better. And like you said, those who know need to teach. As Dr. Maya Angelou said, rest her soul, once you learn, teach. And at the end of the day, those of us who have that information, we got to take it to the next level. I did my doctorate. One of the things you left out is I'm an MC as well.
Oh, that's right. You are an MC.
And I did my doctorate on Jay-Z. And I teach a class on Jay-Z at American University. And one of the things I learned in studying him is he talks about how across the street from where he grew up in the Marcy projects, there's a Jewish community. And he says, when you look at the the Jewish community was pretty much the same economically as the Marcy Projects was. But when you look at it now, the way they've been able to build and grow that community, reinvesting in themselves, teaching each other, it's like night and day. But he says Marcy, for the most part, is still the same. And that's why you see Jay-Z doing things like bringing a cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin class to Marcy Project students, right? Having the scholarship funds to be able to send kids with a C average for Marcy to college, because they won't end up in classrooms like mine at American University without that type of investment. You see people like LeBron James, starting a school, in Ohio. You see in these types of things where people do have the capital and the ability to do that, starting to pass that information on to start to work towards building the next communities. When you look at what was happening in the 60s and with your late Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali, and the others, they had to focus, obviously they were fighting for economic rights, but because what was going on in the civil rights movement, the main thing was that political fight that they were in. We need to be able to vote. We need to be able to live where we want to live, not be able to go to segregated places when we're trying to play. Now we're in a place right now where, because of what they did, because of what other ancestors did, we have the ability to really be able to merge the political might with the economic might and really start to make a directional change in our community, building on what has been done before. And if we don't seize that, we have no one else to blame for us but ourselves. And for the sister who talked about, people who are part of the managerial class and the political system, when we look at, our leaders like, Representative Maxine Waters and the like, there are many who are within the system who have been fighting for us to be able to better ourselves every time. So we can't just condemn all of them just because they're in that system. Representative Clyburn, look at what Representative Thompson's doing right now, challenging Trump right now. And so it's a mixed bag, but so many in there are working on our behalf every day. They need more of our support because they're fighting these races straight up every single day when they walk into the Capitol.
Hey, really quick, Doc, I want to get your view on this because you do work with the next generation, with young people. You do motivational speaking work and working in other capacities. I mean, what do you say, and how do we engage the 21-year-old Black student or the college grad and the student class, the Black student class? How do we make sure that we incorporate them into this larger strategy to move our community and our people forward, especially now, given everything that's happening? I don't want us to, I feel like there's some disconnect right now that's starting to happen where we're like, oh, okay, they on the HBCU campus or in their PWI and they're not being a part of the conversation. How do we bring them in?
Absolutely. I remember when I was an undergrad and Representative Maxine Waters came to my college, right? We have to go and meet them where they are. We cannot expect them to turn on the Black Star Network or Karen Hunter or Joe Madison like right from jump. We got to go to where they are. We got to know the music that they're listening to. Can you walk up to a young guy today and talk about what Nipsey Hussle really did and have a relatable conversation? You know how they say that kids don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. You have to go to where they are and their online platforms and their communities and start to talk to them about the issues that matter to them. And then they're going to start to see how they can partner together. I saw in Roland Martin, I was there when he was doing all of his protests with Howard University, getting those students who he was highlighting when they were protesting the dorms and stuff. Now they're with Black Star Network and they're seeing what's happening. Meet them where they are. One of the reasons I started rapping, bro, is because I realized I can meet more of our young people with a 3-minute rap as opposed to a 3-hour speech because they weren't trying to hear that. That's what we got to do.
Woo! Hey, look, Doc, I got to bring you back on, man. Maybe you spit some bars or something. No, I'm just going to.
I got bars. Let's do it.
I know you got some. But look, I got to bring you back on. But I think that is paramount that we bring them into the conversation in a different way. Because right now, like the new voter, the 18-year-old, the 19, the 21-year-old, politically astute young mind, young Black student, grad student, they on a different wave right now. They on a different wave. And our enemy right there, the enemy of our rise is putting them in a space of reality show. The enemy of our rise is putting them like, hey, you could just be a content creator and make a difference. And it's like, there's so much more that needs to be done.
That's right.
There's so much more. All right, dear brother, we appreciate you, Dr. Omekongo Debenya. We appreciate you, brother. We got to bring you back on. I love the conversation. And certainly, when can folks check you out on RMU?
Monday night. I love being part of the Monday night panel. You can catch us there. If you want more information about me, catch me online at Omekongo or go to upstanderinternational.com or omekongo.com. I love to continue the conversation, but catch me on Monday night with the Monday night panel.
There it is right there, my man, Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. Thank you so much for being so good for the culture and joining us for the conversation today.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we move forward, let's talk a little bit about what's happening with infectious disease and the impact that climate control is having on infectious disease. We check in with Malaria No More to have that conversation. So stay with us. A lot coming at you in the next hour of the culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. So happy you were able to join us. Make sure you join the online culture crew where we have the conversations, continuing to have the conversations. So many of our wonderful watchers have done the great work of making sure that people stay engaged. Make sure you hit us on that subscribe button. Make sure you hit us up on the likes button. And most importantly, make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com, where you can get your support and your love and your appreciation for what we're doing here each and every day on this Black-owned media institution. So make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com, give financially, share the content, and let folks know that Black media is here to stay. All right, folks, as we move forward in our conversations, we've been having some dynamic discussions today. I wanted to talk about something that you probably didn't think of, and I was completely blown about when I started to do some reading and research on this issue, which is the impact that climate change actually has on infectious diseases. Wow. Let me just share with you, first and foremost, where this situation is, because we know that as much as we've been talking about inflation, climate change has been atop of the agenda for so many administrations. With President Biden and Kamala Harris now in the White House, this was still a big issue when President Obama was in the White House. Climate change has always been there. There's a huge movement of making sure that there is justice in the climate space, and how to make sure that Black and brown communities are not impacted by climate change. But now the other thing is that there is new studies to show that climate change actually has accelerated the transmission of infectious diseases. Take a look at this, folks. According to some new from Medical News Today, recently researchers analyzed the effect of 10 different climatic hazards on various infectious diseases. They found that 58% of the 375 infectious diseases documented to affect humanity worldwide have been aggravated by climatic hazards at some point. Now, according to Medical News Today, they say, quote, given the extensive and pervasive consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was truly scary to discover the massive health vulnerability resulting as a consequence of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this was said by Dr. Camilla Mora, who is a professor in the Department of Geography and Environment at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and lead author of the recent scientific analysis, which appears in Nature, according to Medical News Today. Now, if we're looking at a situation where 58%, folks, just think on it, 58% of the 375 infectious diseases documented to affect humanity worldwide have been aggravated by climatic hazards at some point. That just goes to show you that climate change isn't about just melting polar caps, or just the fact that the sun is hotter with global warming in some places versus others, or that in some areas you're getting more, less rain and more less rain in some areas, more rain in other areas. It's not about that. This is really, really fascinating. So we wanted to have a discussion about this, and because one of the big infectious diseases that are being affected by this climate change is malaria. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, like, malaria? What, are we talking about malaria? Well, look, if we could talk about polio, we've certainly been talking about COVID. Now we're talking about monkeypox. it is possible that malaria can be of great concern. So we wanted to bring in Kelly Willis, who serves as the managing director of strategic initiatives at Malaria No More, to discuss this issue. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. It's good to have you.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Kelly, for those who may not be familiar with malaria, because this seems like one of those conditions that, we talked about, years and years ago. But what is malaria? Can you give us a description of what malaria is and impact that it has on the body?
I sure can. And it's a shame that we don't think about it very often, because malaria still today kills a child every minute in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's still having a devastating effect, just, not here in the United States, where we've eradicated it since the 1950s. Malaria is a disease caused by Plasmodium, which is carried by a female Anopheles mosquito. So it's spread from person to person by a particular kind of mosquito. Causes fever, nausea, headaches, and ultimately can cause death, and does in many of its patients. So it's a very serious disease. And I think if COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's just how interconnected we are with the entire world from a global health perspective, and we can't afford not to be paying attention to a disease as serious as malaria. Malaria is actually the oldest infectious disease. It predates humankind.
Wow. And there is some data around the rise of malaria cases. This is something else. Ariel, if we can post this data from about malaria as we talk to Kelly about this, because this is according to a new study that was published in the journal Nature Climate Change. Nature Climate Change this week. Climate change is making 58% of infectious diseases even worse. Not only did researchers find that illnesses like hepatitis, cholera, and malaria are spreading faster, expanding in range, and becoming more severe because of climate-related events. They also found that climate change is making it harder to fight off these diseases by reducing people's immunity and access to medical care. Wow, Kelly.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty startling figure. The researchers reviewed just decades worth of studies and found that information to be true. Infectious disease span a broad range. They're not all mosquito-borne disease like malaria. They include food and water-borne illnesses and airborne illnesses and contact touch. So a whole bunch of infectious diseases are in that 375. But yeah, more than half of them are being exacerbated by the effects of climate change. When we think climate change, I think we tend to think about, as you pointed out, the extreme weather events, the droughts, the heat waves, the forest fires, the flooding. And all of those are true, and all those things do contribute to these problems with infectious disease, because they weaken the health systems, if nothing else. But with malaria and other mosquito-borne disease, it's a little bit more specific than that. The higher temperatures make mosquitoes breed faster, bite more. It actually accelerates the reproduction of the parasite in the human body. So it accelerates the pace of illness and causes death more often. And maybe most importantly, it's taking these mosquito-borne disease to places where we haven't had to worry about them in the past. So maybe we don't have to worry about them here in the United States, but we are seeing that spread of malaria and other mosquito-borne disease as a result of higher temperatures. What happens there is you get into populations who've never had to worry about malaria before. So like most of us here in the US, we're not sleeping under long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets. We're not diagnosing every fever right away and testing it if it's malaria. The health systems aren't prepared for that kind of thing. And so we're seeing these completely, folks without any acquired immunity being all of a sudden vulnerable to malaria and other mosquito-borne disease. Another study recently published showed that the number of people in Africa who are vulnerable to malaria will double by the year 2050 and triple by the year 2080. And so you just imagine sort of the pace of this explosion. And maybe malaria is not so familiar to us here in the United States, but what we do know is, Lyme disease, which is a tick-borne disease. We're seeing upticks in that. Zika, we all remember the Zika scare. Other diseases that are carried by mosquitoes like West Nile virus. And who knows, maybe the next, global pandemic will be caused by a parasite spread by mosquitoes. So we really need to start preparing for this, for the effects of climate change.
This is mind blowing, because it really gets to the place where like you said in the beginning parts of remarks, that we're all connected. Like, we're so connected to the ecosystem that we're a part of, right? And I think because there are so many other things that we have to consider, we don't really think about that. We don't think about that. Yes, we might be living in this state, or yes, we might be a part of this party, or whatever the case may be. But inherently, we're human beings that's connected to the earth, that is affected by the weather elements, whether you're in a cold weather environment or warm weather or hot weather environment. Like, the body is still operating from a very, very natural place. So that's what I think is like the great equalizer of this whole conversation, is the fact that we're connected. Like, you may not want to live next to certain people. You may want to be in a certain space, but guess what? The sun's going to touch you. The trees got to be around.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's right. And in many ways, it is an equalizing phenomenon, because we all are living on Earth. And you're right, we are so interconnected in terms of our ecosystem and our health. In other ways, though, it's incredibly inequitable, because, of course, as in so many things, it's these countries that had the least to do with greenhouse gases and the resulting climate change that are bearing the brunt of the disease burden, at least for a while. So malaria.
And Kelly, which countries are we looking at right now?
We're talking really most of sub-Saharan Africa. Tanzania, for example, has the highest burden. Nigeria has like sort of second highest burden in terms of malaria deaths every year. But really most of sub-Saharan Africa and a lot of Southeast Asia as well is where malaria is a huge burden. And I really can't overstate how serious it is. So I mentioned it kills more than 600,000 people every year. And that means a child every minute in Africa, which is just sort of horrific. But on top of that, it's really has a profound effect on the ability of these countries to develop economically. So, you're sick with malaria rather than being at work. You're not at school. You're caretaking for your family who's sick with malaria. It creates this perpetual cycle of poverty. And again, back to COVID-19 and how we've realized that these shocks to the health system affect all of us directly or indirectly. And so, it's easy for us to think, well, malaria is not a problem here, but believe me, we're all affected by malaria in one way or another. And the good news is we are developing increasingly sophisticated tools to get ahead of this problem. And I'm not talking about stopping climate change. That's something obviously we all can play a part in doing. And we're glad that, as you said, Biden and Harris are focused on this, and, as is the rest of the world. But in the meantime, we also have to get ready for the inevitable effects of it. And so in 2020, my organization joined with many other health organizations and tech companies to create Forecasting Healthy Futures. And this is a consortium that's focused on how can we find positive, proactive solutions to this problem? How can we get people ready for the unimaginable effects of climate change on human health? And we're doing this with like sophisticated artificial intelligence, data from NASA satellites that's increasingly granular and specific. And we're creating these prediction and planning tools that take all this complex data, big data, and then spit out these incredibly user-friendly decision tools for health system managers, so that we can sort of predict these outbreaks before they happen, get there, and intervene. And, I think that's really where the future is going to be. We're not going to stop these infectious diseases from spreading, but we can get better at knowing where and when to expect them and get ahead of that and stop before it has a devastating effect on human health.
So Kelly, there are a couple of questions that come to my mind. So I'm going to start with this one, and then I want to get some thoughts from our watchers, because they have, so many of them are checking in and sharing their, concerns around this issue. But one of the things is that you talked about it being in sub-Saharan Africa. Are there cases of malaria in America right now as we speak?
No, there's not. Now, it happens frequently that travelers coming into America do come with malaria, but since we no longer have an Anopheles mosquito population, right now we don't have to worry about contracting malaria here. But I've heard stories, as probably a lot of us have, from my taxi drivers and my colleagues at work about coming to the United States, well, and not knowing that we were infected with malaria and just how hard it is to get decent care. So unless the health system is expecting malaria, we don't know how to diagnose it. We don't have the drugs on hand to treat it. We don't know what to do if it becomes serious and life-threatening. So that's kind of a scary prospect. But for now, we don't need to worry about contracting malaria in the US.
And then okay, so if we're still kind of at a good place, what is the United States doing? What is Malaria No More doing to help those in Africa? Now, I know you're talking about that forecasting equipment and that data to help to understand, the severity of it. But what other efforts are being made?
Yeah, so much before that, I mean, Malaria No More was launched about 15 years ago with the goal of ending malaria in our lifetime. We now believe that is a completely feasible goal. I mentioned that it's the oldest disease. It's been going forever. It's completely morally indefensible that we continue to allow this disease that is preventable, that is treatable, from killing so many folks in Africa. And in the most vulnerable countries. So our role is to mobilize the political will, make sure that people and policymakers and lawmakers don't forget about this awful disease and continue to invest real dollars on helping African countries combat it. We also advocate for investment, research and development, better prevention tools, better treatment, getting ahead of this disturbing trend that we see of treatment-resistant malaria strains. So we need to stay on top of all that. And then we look for ways to help countries in Africa, their governments, their health systems respond in increasingly sophisticated way. And that's where the Forecasting Healthy Futures tools come in. These are tools that we can offer the health system in Kenya, for example, to be able to respond faster and to avoid those unnecessary deaths. We have the tools now that we need in theory, but we also have some really exciting things on the horizon. There's new vaccines that are in the process of being approved. You may have seen there was the very first malaria vaccine was approved last year, but the next generation ones are on the horizon as well. Monoclonal antibodies are being used to produce immunity in folks as well. We've got genetically modified mosquitoes on the horizon that will prevent mosquitoes from transmitting malaria in the first place or prevent them from reproducing altogether. So there's just a whole slew of reasons that we're optimistic that this, we can end this disease in our lifetime. And everything we learn in terms of, responding to the malaria pandemic can be applied to other mosquito-borne disease and other vector-borne disease. So we all benefit from that. The U.S. invests a fair amount through the President's Malaria Initiative, close to $1 billion a year to African countries to help them respond to this terrible disease. And there's.
No, I was just going to say, I want to take a quick pause. When we come back, I want to get some comments from our watchers as we're talking to you folks. We're checking in with Kelly Willis, who serves as the Managing Director of Strategic Initiatives at Malaria No More. Let's talk a little bit about how climate change has accelerated the growth of infectious diseases. Share your thoughts with us on YouTube and Facebook, and let's continue to have the conversation when we come forward here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be back.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking to Kelly Willis, who serves as the Managing Director of Strategic Initiatives at Malaria No More, to talk about how climate change has impacted infectious diseases, the rise and the growth of infectious diseases, especially cases across the country and around the world. Malaria being one of those top infectious diseases, and a disease that's been around for a very, very long time. And now there is considerable concern around these cases of malaria, especially in light of climate change and in light of weakened immune systems. And so we're having this discussion to bring light to this larger issue. Kelly, again, we thank you so much for being with us here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. I want to jump and get some comments from our watchers because folks have been checking in on this issue. Let's go to Janae. Janae, you said this. So we eradicated it, but won't share our portion with parts of Africa. Of course, these diseases will continue to spread. We lack humanity on so many levels. And I think that, you know, to Janae's point, Kelly, that we have these conversations about things that are happening across the world and across the waters. And even though we might have some way of handling it, and these other countries don't have those same resources, that information or that technology isn't always shared. Can you speak to that?
I can, and you're exactly right. And we, you know, in the global health community talk about those kinds of inequities all the time. It's true, we do have the technologies today. And if everyone were paying attention to it and set their minds to it, we could end malaria next year probably. And it's true. It's hard to keep the world's focused on diseases that affect, in particular, those farthest from opportunity. I am particularly proud, though, of the President's Malaria Initiative, the U.S.'s contribution to the malaria fight. It was President Barack Obama who said, you know, millions of children in Africa are just a mosquito bite away from death, and that is a moral outrage. And it's true. And so I am proud of the U.S. for continuing to invest nearly $1 billion through the President's Malaria Initiative, but also through multilateral institutions that also address the problem. So we're doing a lot, but we could do more. Absolutely, we could do more. And I think the point, yeah, and just to follow on with this, the climate change impact, as I mentioned earlier, really this just adds to the inequity of the situation. Most countries in sub-Saharan Africa contributed very little, if at all, to the global warming that we're experiencing now, and yet they will be the recipients of, you know, the droughts, the famines, the rising sea levels in many instances, and now the spread of infectious disease, which, you know, is unfair. And I do feel like the rest of the world has an obligation to share our knowledge and technologies and the financial means to get it done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Taylor, you checked in and said, malaria has been like this for the majority of my life. Like many things that disproportionately affects Black folks, it has gone ignored. Wow. And I think you spoke about that, Kelly, just the fact that, you know, we're having these conversations and those groups of folks that are most impacted by it, nothing is said, is said, you know, and I'm saying that That's the situation we see with COVID. Now we got monkeypox. Now we're talking about polio coming back into the picture. And those who are impacted the most by these viral infectious diseases, it goes ignored. And you mentioned it. Yeah. The global public health community is starting to see the inequities. And the only pushback I had on that, Kelly, what took it so long? You know what I mean? Like, why did it take so long when people have died from it, families have been affected by it, and now we're finally saying, oh, you know what? It's not the right thing to do. We ignored these groups of people.
Yeah, you know, if we try to, it's hard to keep the American public's mind on diseases and conditions and, you know, problems that affect other parts of the world. And yet this is one where we feel like it's feasible. We can eliminate malaria. We can provide sort of one fewer thing for folks living in malaria endemic countries to worry about. It's doable. I think, you know, a lot of people have been committed to this for a long time, and we've seen amazing progress over the last 15, 20 years. So I don't want to understate that. Deaths from malaria have come way down as a result of the global concerted effort and, you know, the job that the health systems in these African countries are doing increasingly to protect people from malaria. Some of it is just getting the word out that, you know, what you need to do is sleep under long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets. You have to diagnose every fever. If it's malaria, you need to treat it right away. There's special complications for pregnant women. So a lot of what Malaria No More does is create these messages and media that to get that education out to people, particularly in rural parts of Africa where they might otherwise not have this information and the ability to protect themselves. But we can do more, and we're trying to do more. I think we're all pretty optimistic. In fact, there are so many new technologies on the horizon, as I mentioned, and we expect them all to be coming online sort of in the next 5 years. We're trying to gear up the global community, the wealthy donor countries, but also the malaria endemic countries to really dig in and make the next 15 years the last 15 years of the malaria pandemic.
Absolutely. As we close this part of the discussion, Kelly, I'm wondering, what can the citizen do? What can the average American citizen do? What can, you know, global citizens do to be a part of the solution to end this situation?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I mean, to learn more about it, come to our website, malarianomore.org. If you can donate, do. If not, learn about how to write to your congressman. Make sure that the American, resources are still directed toward that disease. And just keep in mind that, again, this is one particular disease we're talking about, but mosquito-borne disease will and do affect us here in the country. So go to forecastinghealthyfutures.org to learn more about what we're doing and to respond to all climate-sensitive infectious.
Did we lose Kelly? Folks, make sure it looks like we may have lost Kelly on a technical glitch, but Kelly, thank you so much for being with us to have the conversation. Folks, if you want to get more information about Malaria No More and the work that they're doing, check out their website at Malaria No More. And more importantly, you can find out how, and I'm just pulling up the website right now, making sure that I give you the right information as we have this conversation. But make sure that you stay in tune to the discussions around global public health issues in the country. And we thank Kelly Willis, who serves as the Manager Director of Strategic Initiative for the there she got it back. All right, make sure. Just giving people the website, malarianomore.org, to have the conversation about how we can end malaria in our lifetime. malarianomore.org. Kelly, I'm gonna give you a few moments to wrap up your final thought.
Just to bring it back to the climate change issues and just how all of us do need to be engaged in this. I mean, climate change is going to affect human health in all kinds of ways across the board, from allergy, asthma, traumatic injuries, emotional stress. But these infectious diseases are a big category, and it's something that we can do something about. So again, come to forecastinghealthyfutures.org. We'd love to hear from you. I saw some of your viewers' comments in the chat section, and I wish I had time to respond. So come talk to us and learn more, and let us tackle this together.
Absolutely. Kelly Willis, we appreciate your time. and you sharing your insight and giving us some very good information about how we can stop this viral disease from being a problem in the next 15 years. Kelly Willis, serving as the Managing Director of Strategic Initiatives at Malaria No More. Kelly, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Take care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we move forward, let's talk about HBCU and medicine. We'll be checking in with Dr. John Seeley, the founding director of the new School of Medicine for Morgan State University, and the impact that it will have on the future of medicine. We'll have that conversation. And of course, we want to hear from you. So make sure you stay tuned. We got a lot more to get to in the final 30 of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
And would you live a balanced life?
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, for today's final discussion, we want to talk about HBCUs and medicine. As we know that historically, Black colleges and universities have always provided the brilliance and the experts that we need in a variety of fields. Well, one HBCU, the national treasure of Morgan State University, is deciding to take their contribution to the next level by having their own School of Medicine. Now, we know Howard has done this and other HBCUs, but this is an historic occasion and a big moment for Morgan State University. And so we wanted to talk to the founding dean of the School of Medicine for MSU, Dr. John Seeley, to give us some insight about how MSU decided to take its, decided to move forward on getting into the field of medicine, even though they started off and they're pretty much known as a school of engineering. So Dr. Seeley, thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Dr. Seeley, first and foremost, talk to us a little bit about the work that you do. And then I want you to give us some insight as to what was the conversation or the number of conversations like talking about taking a school that has been known to do science, engineering, mathematics teaching, now to branch into the field of medicine.
Okay, I am the founding dean of the proposed College of Osteopathic Medicine at Morgan State University. As you know, I want to make sure that you understand that we are in accreditation, and because of that, we have to always say proposed, because we are not really the school as of yet. We have to go through those accrediting processes. Those accrediting processes usually take about 4 different levels. The first level is being an applicant. The second level is being a candidate. The third level is a pre-accreditation, which is the stage where you can now take students. We hope to be in pre-accreditation in 2024, and we hope to start taking students at that time, if everything goes well in accreditation. And then after the first students graduate, we can then become accredited. What I'm doing right now is setting up all of the parameters, going through all of the standards that we need to go through to make the school an accredited process. And then at that point in time, hopefully we can start taking the students and take Morgan to the level that it should be.
So this is certainly a big process. It sounds like, Doc, that this is not just something that you just think about on a whim. This is a process and a conversation and an effort that is years in the making, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that this process started about 4 years ago with President Wilson talking to a group of investors about possibly bringing a medical school to Morgan. Quite naturally, there are currently 4 historically Black colleges and universities that have medical schools on them, and Morgan will be the 5th, and it will be the first historically Black college and university that will have an osteopathic medical school on it. It'll be the first osteopathic medical school in in Maryland. So we're very happy about that. I think that, as you know, as a dean, some things you take as a job and some things you take as a mission. I actually went to a HBCU, and knowing that I did not see my first Black physician until I was actually in college, I know how hard it is and what's happening. And when you see the number of underrepresented minorities that graduate from medical school right now, there is a need. When you look at population health and where you live is a lot to do with what your diseases are. There is a need. It's just trying to satisfy that need, and that's what we're doing. I think that that's the excitement is around this whole project.
So let's talk a little bit about this, Dr. Seeley, when we're looking at this issue. Matter of fact, let's take a quick pause, and then I want to get more into conversation about this. Folks, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with Dr. John Seeley, the founding dean of the proposed School of Medicine from Morgan State University, to talk about HBCU and the future of medicine. Stay with us. It's going to be, that conversation will continue on The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Just been having a conversation with Dr. John Seeley, the founding dean of the proposed new School of Medicine at Morgan State University. And Dr. Seeley was just talking to us about the accreditation process it takes to move forward on a big effort where a school such as Morgan State University, a school that is known for its engineering and science and teaching experts, are now branching out into the space of medicine. And Dr. Seeley, again, we thank you so much, dear brother, for being with us. Let's talk a little bit about how this effort will impact the school's national reputation. Because we know we got Howard down not too far down the street in DC, but now Morgan being in this new space of producing some of the top medical and medical doctors and health professionals, how do you think that is going to really influence the conversation about the significance and the value of HBCUs?
It's going to be, if you look at the number of underrepresented minorities that graduate from the majority schools, such as Johns Hopkins or Maryland, that they're here, you'll see that there's truly, it's small. It's very, very small.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's all about the students, to be honest with you, because now students can dream. You can dream about you don't have to be a neuroscientist anymore. You can be a neurosurgeon. It's all about taking the opportunity of an engineer to the opportunity of being a physician, to be a provider of healthcare. If you look at any community that has a medical school in it, the whole community grows. It is thought that this medical school will have impact in 10 years of about $5 billion on the community in Maryland. So it means that Morgan will be the pinnacle, which has been all along and the beacon for progress for the African American community into another area. We have all kinds of problems with healthcare right here in Baltimore and throughout the state of Maryland. And I think that when President Wilson decided to talk about this medical school, he was talking about improving the healthcare of the citizens of Maryland, and also the well-being. You will have people going from middle class now to upper middle class because physicians will be able to make a little bit more and enhance their community more. So it's just a total combined effort to make the community much better.
Absolutely. And, I think that the fact that you said, Doc, that Baltimore, growing up in Baltimore is a healthcare city. You got Hopkins, you got the University of Maryland. I mean, healthcare is one of the top industries in Baltimore, along with education. That's something that I read, that those are the two main industries of the city. And so it's a ripe, fertile ground for producing new Black doctors and medical professionals. And I think that's interesting. The other part of it is that we're not having enough of those conversations. I remember when I was younger, Doc, that when people asked you, what did you want to be when you grew up? Doctor was still a part of the top 3 to 5 things you said that you wanted to be. It's not that as much anymore. There is a cultural shift that has happened that instead of us saying, hey, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, the cultural shift is I want to be an entertainer. I want to be a content creator. I want to be, I want to do some other things. Do you agree with that assessment? And then secondly, how do we make sure that we get our Black students excited about going into a field that is systemically has been against us?
Okay, those two very important questions. First of all, I had a student that stopped by the office today just to sit and talk and chat. And I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? She said, I want to be a neuroscientist. It was never ever a thought in her mind that she could be a neurosurgeon. Because it's been so difficult and that to get into medical school, and we don't see any of our neighbors that are in medical school, that people stop dreaming about being in medical school. They stop dreaming about that whole process. I think that this allows them to re-dream again. As a man thinketh, so is he. You gotta dream. And I think that that's the thing that is a part of that whole process of getting them to do that. Now, how do we get them? That conversation with her. She came into my office. She saw I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. She saw her surgeon sitting in front of her, and immediately she imagined herself being a physician, a neurosurgeon. And at the end of the day, she cried. Her tears were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy, because now she can dream again. She doesn't have to really look at that whole process of not realizing what I really want to do. So when you look at the television, you see entertainers. You don't see Black physicians, unfortunately. When you look around in your neighborhood, you don't, because they don't get accepted, unfortunately, to the school. We want to change that whole dilemma. How do we do that? We start early. I think that we have to have a program that start talking to kids in the 6th grade. And at that time, telling them what it's like being a physician. Having my students go out into some of these high schools and elementary schools and touch kids, where they can touch that whole process.
That's a great idea.
And when they get into high school, bring them over to the campus. Let them participate in what we call a mini medical school, where they actually can see that going to medical school is not hard. You got to be determined. You can't make a whole lot of mistakes. But you know what? When you have to make that decision as to whether you're going to go to a party or whether you're going to study, many times, if you have been there and done that, you have a tendency to do the right thing. And I think that's the most important thing. So encouraging them is not hard. These shows that you have, like you have today, is going to encourage somebody. Somebody's going to see this show. They're going to see this Black cardiothoracic surgeon on this show, and they're going to say, I can do that, just like I did when I was younger. And
that's beautiful.
That's the way
that's
it is.
Beautiful. I'm telling you, I'm happy that I had a conversation with you, brother. I'm being honest with you, Doc. That's beautiful. You are absolutely right. And I think it's, unlike in any other group of people in this country, right? Black folks, we need a cultural push just as much as we might need a political, financial, social push. Like, it has to be a part of the culture, and we can't deny this. When we saw Bill Cosby as Dr. Huxtable, that did something for Black people. We saw Felicia Rashad as an attorney. That did something for Black people. Regardless of where you stand on them now or what the show is about, Black family with 2 Black professionals who intentionally said doctor and lawyer. Bill Cosby must have seen that some way down the road, this was going to be fading from the conversation about the way we dream and how we dream, that he always wanted to keep those things at the forefront. No, our characters are going to be doctors and lawyers. And so I think that speaks to where we are. Yes, sir, brother.
I was going to say that, I can think of, I'm from a single parent household. My mother raised me, but she put some things in my head that I think about even now. One is always do the very best you can. Even if you're going to be a janitor, be the very best janitor. And the second thing she said was, your hands are too small to actually go out into the fields and be a laborer. You cannot. You must be a school teacher or something like that. It's all about pushing a person to that direction, to the fact that you don't have to be born in all of the riches and values that people might have. You don't have to drive a Porsche to be a physician. You could be just like me. You don't, have 3 pair of pants when you go to college. But you just have to have the determination. And that's what I think that HBCUs do for us, because it teaches you that you don't have to be from any rich family to be here. It's the warmth of that whole process. It decreases the microaggressions and all the other things. You just can be yourself. And if you really, really put forth the effort, we'll be here to catch you and carry you on. And that's what I told her today, is that we're here to catch you and to make sure that your dreams are your realities. And that's what we are here to do.
That is beautiful. All right, let's take some comments from our watchers, Doc, because people are checking in and having these discussions on our online streaming platforms, YouTube, Facebook. Taylor, I wanted to bring up your comment because I think it's important. You said that Farajii, everything ain't cultural. It is very much financial. It takes enormous amounts of study to achieve, and the compensation is relatively low, insurance company related. So I think to a certain degree, I can understand that. But can you speak to what is your vision as the founding dean of this new medical school, and how will you price it in a way that attracts people and then people don't think that it is out of their reach to be a doctor?
But it's not out of their reach. I mean, people pay $100,000 for a car, and they don't want to pay $25,000 for the education. No, it's not out of reach. If you look at any barrier, and I'm on the other side of it. I've gone through medical school. I've done my certification. I've practiced. I've done all those things. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know of any physicians, no matter what it paid, what it cost to get through that process, that aren't doing better on the side of after graduation than they were prior to that process. Look, man, I will tell you, and I say, look, man, or look, woman, you know, when you're trying to change yourself from one platform to another, it takes effort, energy, and determination. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't make it. You know, Curtis Mayfield will tell you that, because it's going to be hard. He'll tell you anything, and that's not true. Yeah, it's going to cost you. Yes, you're going to have some financial obligations, but like there are communities in this country that will pay your loans back if you come into those communities. And Baltimore have some of those areas right here in Baltimore. If you become a doctor, you came back to Baltimore in the inner city in practice, your loans will be forgiven. I'm just saying to you, don't let that be the determining factor. Hard work, study, yes. If you're going to go inside of me like I would do and take out somebody's lung out of their chest, you want the most qualified person. It doesn't have to be the smartest person. You just have to have a person that's going to make sure that when you get up, that you get off of that table. And that's the whole point. So don't tell me that you don't have to study. Yeah, I want you to study as much as you possibly can. But I tell you, the rewards are there if you do it the right way. That's all I'm saying. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't be a physician because it costs too much. It doesn't cost too much, because for every seat in the medical school, there are 10 applicants.
Say, wait a minute, hold on, Doc. Say that once again, dear brother, so we can understand the situation.
I shouldn't say it in every, but the average number of applicants for every seat in the medical school is 10 to 1. Somebody, and the number of underrepresented minority is very, very slim. Somebody is understanding that is a very, very nice piece of cake in there, and they are going to get it no matter what. So I'm saying to you is that, look, here's what I'm just some of the things that I was told. When I was going to medical school, and I was going to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, which there are not that many African-American cardiothoracic surgeons. My instructor said, John, in order to be a cardiothoracic surgeon and you're black, you got to be 10 times better than the majority, than Caucasian cardiothoracic surgeon. I said to him, bring it on. When I was training, there was a time that I say, just like I'm from the South, and we had all of those marches and things for our freedom, and people sacrificed their lives for our freedom. I was willing to do what it would take to become a surgeon. So I overtrained. I did everything that I can. So what I'm saying, for those of you that say it's hard, it's expensive, well, it is. So let's do it. I tell you, you will, being on the other side, you'll be rewarded for that whole process.
I love it.
Ask any physician, what would he do? And they will say, I would do that. I would borrow whatever it takes, because I know I can get it back.
Absolutely.
High investment, high risk, high reward. High investment, if you work really hard, you'll be okay.
I love it. Hey, Doc, I love it. Mike V checked in and said, look, Doc, the ratio for Black medical professionals, such as nurses, is 2 to 1 for Black women to Black men. How does Morgan plan to close the gap of Black men in the field of healthcare?
Well, you got to start that gap. Unfortunately, you got to start that gap in the 6th grade. You got to have our African American men feeling that they can do it. They got, they're not, it's not because, the reason why that gap is so large is not because they can't do it. When I was in college, the ratio was 10-1. There were 10 women to 1 male. And they had the factories and all those kind of things that they could do it. You don't have that right now. So if you encourage individuals in the 10th, the 9th, the 10th, and earlier on that they can be physicians, and you put it in their souls, I think we can close that gap that way. But they still got to be qualified. One thing that us as a medical school, white, black, blue, green, yellow, purple, we have to protect the public. So we're not going to let you. We're not going to help people in this school just because you might be, just because you might be a certain color. We want the most qualified people, and when you graduate, you will be one of the most qualified physicians that graduate. So we're not looking to make Morgan, and Dr. Wilson said that to himself. Do not embarrass me. You know what I mean? We have a brand here. We have worked hard to make our brand. We have 9,000 students that are on our campus at this point in time. Don't embarrass us. He doesn't want anybody out there that is going to embarrass that whole process. And my job is to protect the public. And that's my whole process. And I agree with you. I'm going to go out and talk to every group I can talk to, encourage every male that I can encourage. But sometimes being an African American male, we get beat down a little bit. I mean, we get
yes, sir.
Down a little bit. Society beat us down a little bit, and we have to boost each other up. And that's what you got to do. And you read the paper every day, you see the plights and all that kind of stuff. Somewhere along the line, we got to say, okay, no, to that whole process and help that situation. And we're here to do that. You got to be here. Morgan is our pipeline for our students. We have programs that will help that. The school is not just going to be an African-American school. It's going to be a school for everybody. But that makes it so that you can't be discriminated against because you went to anything. It's going to be a great school. We're going to compete with everybody on every level. From the academic standpoint, we think we bring a different brand than maybe Johns Hopkins or Maryland, because we can. There is room for growth in the state of Maryland and the city of Baltimore.
Absolutely.
I want a kid that is in elementary school at Baltimore, that white any kind of, and go to high school in Baltimore, go to college in Baltimore, go to medical school in Baltimore, do their residency in Baltimore, and practice in Baltimore. That's what I want to happen.
Come on. There it is. Devondis Booker. Devondis, you checked in. Good to hear from you in your voice. You said we always have to be 10 times better, but don't get 10 times the pay.
How do you know? If you're 10 times better, you're going to get more pay. What are you talking about? That's not true. If you're the best in the world, that's Ben Carson. Ben Carson is 10 times better, and he probably is 10 times compensated, because people are going to look for expertise in that area, man. If you're safe when you're 10 times better in medicine, you're saving a whole lot of lives.
Oh yeah.
You understand? And the second thing is this. Now, I'll be honest with you. I didn't go into medicine for the money. I went into medicine because I saw people that I love having issues. I was in the time when they was discriminated. You went through a doctor's office, it was white and colored. And I didn't want that. But I can tell you this, economically I've done okay, but I just wanted to be the best in the world. I just wanted to be the best. And that's what I did. And you get compensated for it. So that's not, when a person comes up to you after you have saved their lives and they say to you, I'm alive because of you, put a price on that.
Come on. And I truly believe, Doc, and as we wrap up this part of the discussion, brother, and first and foremost, I appreciate you. So many of our watchers appreciate your candor. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? They appreciate that. But here's what I love. I love the fact that, we because we're part of a capitalistic system, everything is always seen through the lens of financial gain, right? But for certain professions like an educator, if you want to get into public service or being a doctor, these are callings. This is you put a lot of time to qualify yourself, right? You sacrificed a lot of time to qualify yourself because this is a calling. This is not just like, oh, I need to make some money real quick. Let me go into medical school, right? This is a calling that you want to help people, the health and wellness of people. That's a calling. That's a gift. And, even though, like you brought up Dr. Ben Carson, regardless of where you stand on his politics, his hands are gifted.
That's right. Yes.
If you want somebody to do surgery on you, and he's one of the options, I don't care about your politics because I know you got the gift. You are more than qualified to save somebody's life.
One more thing that is very important to you is that at one time we only could be a school teacher, and then they brought in engineering. Now we can be doctors and lawyers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that Morgan is a part of that whole process. It gives you more options.
Yep. Absolutely. Gives you more options. Doc, as we wrap up this discussion, again, we thank you so much for your time. What's the next step of this process so we can at least be informed about, the progression of this effort?
Yeah. Right now we're going towards our next stage, and we're going to be in our next stage. We started in our next stage as an applicant. As a candidate, we're going to start in our next stage is the candidacy, which lasts about 6 months, and then we're going to the pre-accreditation, and then we'll start. If everything is okay and everything is passed appropriately, we'll start bringing these students into the campus, and we will then. I look and yearn for that day that we see 75 white coats walking around Morgan campus. That's going to tell the whole community a great deal right then, no matter whether they're black or whatever, but to have, and we purposely, if you say you're from Morgan, the school is going to be on the Montebello complex. We're going to tear building down. We're going to put up a 90 to 130,000 square foot building, 4 stories, that building with some green space. And you're going to have those kids walking out. This is dreaming, man. This is what we talk about. We talk about dreaming through this whole process. You walk out of that building, and we make sure that we keep those kids on this campus and not 30 miles away or 20 miles away, so everybody can see what it means to have a white coat on.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point. And that's the
whole
point.
Hey, Doc, I want to ask you something more personal, on a personal note. Did you see yourself going through all of your years being a doctor, being a surgeon, now being in this part of your career where you're establishing a medical school? Did you ever see that in your dream?
Absolutely not. but the point that I'm going to tell you something, at every step that I dreamed, I could wake up the next morning and dream a higher step. Because you know what? To even think about being a doctor when I was young was unbelievable. But once I got there, then I realized that I could not stop there until I went to the highest level I can go to. So it's so funny because it's like if you teach a person to fish, then you know that whole process. How about we teach 100 people to fish?
Woo.
Then you really got a good process going. So yeah, it dreams. I dream even now. My dream is to see those kids walk through those doors. So yeah, I did not dream. I did not wake up saying I wanted to be a doctor one morning. I was going to be a preacher or something. But
I can see that.
It touched me, and when it touched me, it says you have to be the best. So I started going through the whole levels of being a doctor. Practicing in Union Springs, Alabama, going back and being a surgeon, and then going back and being a cardiothoracic surgeon, and going back and being an educator, and then going back and being an associate dean, and then it's hard. You talking about hard work? You talking about sacrifice? It is. That's what that is all about. Hard work and sacrifice, but it all pays up, man. It it pays you. Eventually, you get paid for it. So I get paid either good in Union Springs, Alabama, they pay me with a chicken. You understand? That's how they pay for their care. Now, people come up to me, and young lady that was here, she's a freshman here. She came by just to talk to me because she wanted to go into the sciences. And when I finished, she wanted to be a neurosurgeon. She grabbed and hugged me. How can you categorize? How can you pay for that hug that I got from her with her mother sitting right there? You understand? Her younger sister in the 9th grade sitting there, and both of the sister and her younger sister and her was crying. Like, they're finally beginning to dream, man. That's what you got to do. And,
that's generational.
That's you too. You remember, and I'm the accolades go out to you too, because you're touching it just the same way, man. You're allowing people to dream today. There's a medical school that's coming. It's a proposed medical school right now, but Morgan has to be there. This got to be done. And you got to come back to homecoming and going, I was a part of that, guy.
Yes. Yes. Hey, look, we're going to have to make that happen, Doc. Doc, I'm just have to say, dear brother, I'm just so grateful and honored, and it's such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, man, it's been great. Anytime. Call me back and get a little further, okay?
Yeah, how about that? And you know what? That piece, out of everything that you said a lot of jewels, you dropped a lot of jewels, but that piece about dreaming, how important it is for Black people to dream again. And I think that's the little nuggets. It's one of the many nuggets I'm gonna walk away with from this conversation, is the importance of dreaming. And I know a lot of Black folks, we're in a harsh reality of where we are in this country.
Right.
We're in a harsh reality within ourselves and with ourselves and our own communities. But to be able to dream, something that we learn to do when you're a child, and then it gets diminished when you become an adult. You're learning to dream. I love that. And Doc, you are a preacher.
Get out of here. No, I'm not. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor.
I'm going to call you Dr. Pastor.
No, don't do that. No,
but I truly appreciate that.
This is important to all of us, and I'm just glad to be the dean of this proposed school, because
yes, sir.
It's where I'm supposed to be right now.
Come on, that's it right there, folks. We've been talking to Dr. John Seeley, who is serving as the founding dean of the proposed medical school at Morgan State University. We'll certainly bring you up to date as this process continues. But Dr. Seeley, thank you for your great service. Thank you for your inspiration, and thank you for being so good for the culture. We truly appreciate you, dear brother. Thank you so much. You're always welcome to come back on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, man, a great way to end today's show. Man. Oh, I'm filled up with the Spirit, folks. I'm filled up with the Spirit. Who would have thought that talking to a doctor will make you feel good like you just walked away from a sermon? Come on now. Look, Dr. John Seeley. All right, folks, look, if you've enjoyed the conversations today, make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe to Roland Martin's page, subscribe to, make sure y'all follow me on all of my social media. First, let's get the big business. Go to blackstarnetwork.com, continue to support us and all of the work that we're doing, having these very, very important, timely, culturally relevant conversations. Make sure you check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Support Black-owned media like never before. Also, make sure y'all hit me up on my social media. You can follow me on Instagram at The Real Farajii, Farajii, The Real Farajii. You can follow me on not the old one. We got to change that one, Keenan. We got to change that one, bro. But The Real Farajii on Instagram. I'm at Farajii on Twitter. And you can also follow me on Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. But look, we need to continue the conversation. Big shout out to my online culture crew. Thank y'all so much. I see you. Big shout out to all of the new voices that tuned in today, that checked us out. I hope you enjoyed the show and you got a little taste of what the culture brings to the conversation, what we bring to the table. Man, oh man. Make sure y'all support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure y'all support all of our shows, The Pivot, A Balanced Life, The Black Table, making sure you support Get Wealthy. Look, we got a ton of great content here on Black Star Network, and we just need you to continue to show your love and your support. But I thank you. I thank you so much each and every day for joining us for these important conversations. So I want to thank all my very special guests that came on today. Tomorrow, we'll reconnect with our culture crew and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Roland Martin Unfiltered is coming up next here at the 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.